I want to bring in New York Congresswoman Claudia Tenney. Congresswoman, your reaction to these 25 states, this is half the country, and we should say that Governor Kristi Noem already says, absolutely, I will send our National Guard members down to the border if I'm asked.
Yeah, well, this is a catastrophe at the border, as you know. I just want to weigh in from New York. We have a far-left liberal governor who just put $2.4 billion more into protecting illegal immigrants in the state of New York. And I just had a roundtable conference with all different types of law enforcement members, including Customs and Border Patrol, because I represent the northern border of New York. And they described to me a situation where so many of them have been displaced to the southern border because of the catastrophe there. And so we are leaving ourselves vulnerable everywhere. And the fact that the Supreme Court is coming down against Texas on this case, we'll see where it ultimately ends up. But Texas is trying to defend its border against a lawless president, a Department of Homeland Security head, Mayorkas, who are refusing to actually implement the laws of the United States, which is what part of the basis for the impeachment of both Joe Biden and Mayorkas is about in the House of Representatives, where we have a very slim majority now, only 2-seat majority, really between keeping sanity and the craziness of what's happening in the Biden administration. And I think it was pointed out recently by our speaker that 64 different laws, whether they're executive orders or changes of our administrative laws by Mayorkas, is what has caused this problem at the border. We had laws in place under President Trump that were working, and yet this president decided to roll them back simply because they were rules, it seems to me, by Donald Trump. And it is now becoming, isn't this deja vu all over again, as Yogi Berra would say? We are looking at the biggest issue that was faced in 2016 when President Trump was seeking election. Now it was the border then, and now it's the border and the economy again.
I am so glad, Claudia, that you brought up the issue of Congresswoman, pardon me. I am so glad that you brought up the issue of Governor Hochul and that fund, and the funding, because here in New York City, Adams, the mayor of the city, coming out saying another $177 million towards keeping these migrants in New York City hotel rooms. So here, instead of having tourists come in and rent out hotels rooms in this city, we've got migrants that are and why wouldn't they want to come to a place like New York? And they are. You're getting a hotel. You're getting a phone. The red carpet is getting rolled out. And until this city stops being a sanctuary city, which I don't think is going to happen because of Albany, and also when this right to shelter disaster is overturned, which, again, I'm not hopeful it's going to happen, the budget of the city of New York, and because you're a New York congressman, I want to ask you this, is there any hope that this city and New York State can come out of this mess?
Look at Cheryl, this $2.4 billion that I cited that Governor Hochul put in this year's budget is on top of $1 billion in new taxes for illegal immigrants in the state, and they're continuing to try to force them upstate. Look, Mayor Adams knows he has a problem on his hands. He's pleaded to Joe Biden and others, but they continue to blame the Republicans. That's exactly what Joe Biden keeps doing. When this crisis is squarely in his court, he has created it. He's made it worse. The numbers are staggering. And Cheryl, when I start hearing Democrats talking about mass deportation and talking about the problems at the border, this is going to be a bellwether for this election, because people are realizing how much this takes away from their own resources in a state like New York. And remember, another thing that we have in New York State, it's called the Green Light Law. This was brought up to me by every member of law enforcement, from Customs and Border Patrol all the way to local sheriffs. This law, passed by Governor Cuomo in 2019, allows illegal immigrants to get driver's licenses and prevents any kind of sharing of Department of Motor Vehicle records. So if a police officer or a Customs and Border agent encounters someone who may be a legal immigrant, maybe a stolen car, a stolen boat on all the different waterways that I have in my district, they cannot share any of that information, the Department of Motor Vehicles, with them to determine if this is in fact an ongoing crime, a stolen vehicle or whatever. And they cannot determine, because illegal immigrants with valid New York licenses are protected, which conceivably, Cheryl, they could go anywhere in the United States holding up a valid New York license.
Yep.
These are privileges of citizenship, not illegal immigrants.
And you know who's the most angry about this is those here in, and I'm just going to go stay on New York for a second. The most angry are those that did it legally, that they fought their way through the immigration court system to actually be a U.S. citizen. They're the most furious. But you know what? I always say this, New York, you get what you vote for. James Freeman from the Wall Street Journal is on set with me. Congresswoman, he's got a question for you.
Thanks, Congresswoman. Sure. Yeah, trying to figure out, you mentioned how the president doesn't want to solve this problem, and I'm trying to figure out why. We show that graphic with the 25 Republican governors opposing him. If it was a secret ballot, you might get 50. He can't possibly at this point fear an AOC-type candidate showing up on his left in Democratic primaries. Why is this not in his interest to solve this problem? I just don't get it.
You know, that is the $64,000. Maybe in this era, it's the $64 billion question. They're putting us at risk as our economy. Number one, you're taking resources away from everyday Americans. We are spending billions of dollars for people who did not earn those living. You know, there is something that Donald Trump did run on in 2016. Whether you like him or not, he captivated people by something that's really critical to our country, and it's the value of citizenship. It matters. And as Cheryl just pointed out, new immigrants value it even more than we do. And I think people have become complacent. And I think the Democrats have a lust for authoritarianism. They are so close to total control of our federal government. They're 2 seats away. And authoritarianism, which they always project, by the way, oh, Trump's an authoritarian, or the Republicans are authoritarians, or the MAGA Republicans are lawless. Everything they project that they claim that the Republicans are doing, they're doing themselves and are worse. You know, we have a president under President Trump. I guess it's to register more voters under the green light law, by the way.
Illegal immigrants. Any change either from Democratic
I hate to be so cynical to say that. I founded the Election Integrity Caucus, and I know but in New York, they have changed the rules to really just take advantage of our voting system. You know, we have no integrity left in New York's law, and actually we have a decent law originally before the Democrats started really imposing new laws.
James, go ahead.
Okay, so you're not hearing, I guess, from Democratic colleagues in the House, from White House, the president and his staff. You're not hearing any new willingness to negotiate, to look at ways of fixing this lately. I mean, we keep reading, news consumers keep reading all these stories about negotiations in the Senate. Do you see a change in approach from the White House?
Well, I think there is a problem. We have an octogenarian in the White House who makes statements he shouldn't make, and I think he's blurted out statements that have become public, like, oh, we have a crisis at the border. He's admitting it while staff tries to roll it back and deconflict what he said. So I do think, and I hate to be cynically me, says Mr. Freeman, I think there is an element of let's get these people in, let's make them voters, let's make sure that we win them over. And I think that is, I mean, it's hard not to believe that's part of what they're doing, but I think it's all part of a mass destruction of our country and our framework. And I think that's part of it as well.
Congresswoman Claudia Tenney, between you, Nicole Maliotakis, Elise Stefanik, I could not be more proud of the women that represent New York State. Thank you, as always, for being here. It's always great to talk to you. Thank you.